Welcome to Noach Talk. I'm your host, William Hall, broadcasting to you live out of Kingsland, Texas, USA, with another episode of Torah Talk. Coming to you from Houston, Texas, Rabbi Stuart Federow for the Torah Parsha of Noach. Rabbi, how are you, sir? Man, each week I'm realizing.
Thank God, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm realizing each week I keep trying to work on the timing of when I have to click, but there's too many buttons to click within a matter of about 2 seconds, and so I still can't pull it off.
I noticed.
Oh man, that is all right though. Well, very good. Well, I'll tell you what, it's been a while since we've had you in the studio. And let me double check here to make sure.
Too long.
Oh, yes, right. Okay, I'm making sure I've got everything playing right. And everything looks good. Mute's off and everything's good. You look great. You'll see I actually had a little bit of a background shift as I was setting up tonight. I accidentally stumbled on a really neat feature when you overlap two backgrounds together. So I basically on the Torah Talk weekly Parshas, I usually have just the Torah scroll in the background, our personal Torah scroll picture of it. But this one actually had another picture in the lineup. And when I went to go adjust the chroma key, the green screen effect, it actually allowed to be able to see through the letters into what was behind it. And so people right now are looking at the screen and they're seeing the Torah scroll, but the lower portion of it, you can actually see like flames coming through the letters in the background. It's pretty cool. It was an accident, but I thought it was kind of cool, so I figured I'll leave it, so. Wow. So, Rabbi, okay. Before we get kicked off, there's a lot of people who don't know you, who probably would like to.
Hi.
Real quickly, because I know whenever we get started, it'll be a nonstop flow. And there's a book that you have that I would like for you to just touch base on real fast. Judaism. I'm sorry. Yes. What? Say again.
Well, just thank you for letting me do a shameless plug.
No problem. Well, it's really a neat book. I mean, because it's a compressed version, a highly compressed version of something like Rabbi Singer's book, except yours really doesn't show the similarities. It shows really blatant the total contrast. I mean, not that Rabbi Singer's, they don't show similarities either. He actually addresses it as well. So yours is like a condensed, compressed, heavily loaded book.
Actually, William, I think my book is a different approach to responding to Christian missionaries.
Right, got it.
Yes, my book, Judaism and Christianity: A Contrast, is to take the most basic elements of Christian theology and show how it's unbiblical.
Right.
I do have part of my book discussing proof texts, where Christians will take a look at the Hebrew scriptures and claim that a verse is a reference to some Christian theological belief and why they're wrong. That is in my book. But the main thrust of my book has to do with elements of the most basic elements of Christian belief and why those beliefs are not biblical. You can argue, right. Two people can argue for hours and hours over one verse and what it really means. Is it important to Christians, or is their interpretation nonsense? Okay, and they'll continue to disagree. But if you take a look at the most basic elements of Christian belief, that Jesus died for your sin, that Jesus was God, a human was God, that people inherit sin. These are the elements that really make up the Christian belief, with or without their interpretation of the Hebrew scriptures. And what my book does is show that those beliefs are unbiblical to begin with.
Very good.
So if a Christian were standing here and he said that a verse in the Hebrew scriptures was about Jesus, I could say, no, it's not, and here's why. And he could say, yes, it is, and here's why. And it's his opinion versus my opinion. And then a third person could come along and, well, that's just his human opinion. But if their belief contradicts a verse in its most simple, basic, pashat,
sure,
literal meaning, then it doesn't matter who interprets what verse. His belief has to be rejected because it's against what the Bible explicitly says.
Got it.
And so my response to Christian missionaries is, I think, slightly different than, the heavy hitters, shall we say, of the counter-missionary movement.
Right. Very good. And where can they get this book at? What's the easiest place they can find it besides my house?
Yeah, thank you. You can get it from Amazon. You can get it from Barnes and Noble. You can get it as a paperback. You can get it as a hardbound. You can get it as a Kindle or as a Nook, and you can get it as an ebook from playgoogle.com. By the way, I also have my website, whatjewsbelieve.org.
And they can get it from there too, right?
And I also have, and they can also get it through there, but really it'll just send them to Amazon anyway.
Okay.
They can also, I have 2 apps also to help people learn how to respond to Christian missionaries. And my book really is expanding on the website and the apps. The Android and the iPhone apps are both called Jewish Mission Control.
Oh, nice.
So if you do a search on the it's Jewish Mission Control, and they're a Jewish response to Christian missionaries.
I'm
Jewish
actually
Mission
looking
Control,
this up as you talk.
Apple Store or
Okay.
either the Apple Store or the Android Play Store. You can find them, the 2 apps. So 2 apps, a website. Oh, I also have a Spanish translation of an older version of whatjewsbelieve.org, which is creenciajudia.org.
Okay. Now, Jewish.
If you go to whatjewsbelieve.org, I'm sorry.
I found Jewish Mission Control version 2. Is that it?
That's it. That's it.
Okay. I'm clicking on it now. I'm going to install it on my phone right now. Except because this would actually be very handy. Thank you. It's free. I mean, it's not like I'm paying you lots of money to do this.
Yes, of course. No. It's all free. Well, my book is not free, but the point is, please give me a 5.
Oh, totally. Well, you got a 5 before I even had you on the show.
Rate my app a 5.
You got it.
Because when the Messianics find out about my app, they're going to start giving it a 1 or a 0 or whatever, and they're going to start putting comments about how horrible it is. And I'd rather we outnumbered them.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, well, Rabbi, thank you for delighting me and refreshing my memory on things, and also for the whole app thing too, because you mentioned it last time and I failed to follow through with it. And this is actually pretty cool. I like this. This is very easy to use, user friendly, big, nice, strong print, very simple titles.
Very simple and straightforward.
Yeah, I like that.
It's just basically, the topics. You click on the topic, you read what I have to say about it, and the book is an expansion of what you find on the websites and on the apps.
That's awesome. Okay, Rabbi.
So thank you for letting me do that.
Oh,
thank you for letting me do that shameless plug.
That is quite all right. Okay, so I'm going right now to Genesis chapter 5. It was what verse did you say that was going to end in? Verse 19. What? We're going to start in chapter 5 of Genesis, right? To kind of touch base before we move into Noach.
Genesis chapter 6, verse 5.
Oh, 6:5. Oh, okay.
Okay. By the way,
yes,
William, I have to tell you a story first.
Oh, perfect. I love stories. Go right
just
ahead.
Because you reminded me of it. But when I was the rabbi in Greenville, Mississippi, and I was fresh out of seminary, brand new to the congregational rabbinate, and I had 2, how do I word this nicely, big shots of my synagogue come to me, and they had a question to ask, and they were arguing, and I had to settle their argument. And they said, what is the proper way to spell Noah? Is it Noah, or is it Noach? And I was new, I was young, I didn't really want to choose between the 2. So I said, actually, there's only one and only one correct way to spell Noach. Nun chet.
Right. That's funny.
It's in the Bible that way.
Right.
And then I said that if you want to spell it in English as a transliteration of what the Hebrew actually says, then you have to spell it with English letters that will make the reader of the English pronounce it as close as you can get to Noach, which in fact would actually be Noach. So,
right.
But I sidestepped the issue who was right by saying the only right way was the Hebrew way.
There you go. That's the way to go. I heard an interesting story similarly down that line, where, and I can't remember if I can remember the details, I will actually share it with you later. It was actually quite funny, but it basically had to do with.
All right.
Oh, I kind of remember. I'll just kind of hit it lightly, and I'll let you fill in the blanks. But basically, these two young Jewish guys was trying to argue about how is it that you pronounce a certain word, because there was no like V sound or something in ancient Hebrew, and so they were arguing back and forth, and finally they said, well, we'll go ask the Rebbe, and so they went and asked the Rebbe, well, how do you say this, and he pronounced it with the Vav sound, and he said, the one guy said, see, I told you that's how you say it. And he goes, thank you, Rebbe. He goes, you're welcome. So with the full storyline, it fits right in. So even as English pronounced with a V. So, okay. All right, Rabbi, I'm going to turn this over to you, but probably I've got a big mouth and antsy pants. So I'm probably going to interject along the way.
No.
Questions?
Absolutely. Please do so. All right.
Okay. It's all yours. Go for it.
Go ahead.
Nope, it's all yours. I noticed that because you don't have a microphone, it actually it's kind of like you and I are talking on two-way radios. So it seems like whenever I'm talking and you're talking at the same time, even if it's overlapping a second, one of us, you're not able to hear me, or it sounds like I'm cutting you off, and I do apologize for that. So we'll maybe work on next time when we have you in to have you a good microphone setup. So that'll resolve any. Very good. Okay.
Okay. Right. All right. So the reason why I wanted to start not with the portion Noah, okay, but rather with the paragraph that immediately precedes it, which is technically still part of Bereshit, is because it's the setup for the story of Noah. And it brings up a very interesting theological question, I think. This is Genesis chapter 6, verse 5. And I'm not sure how your translation will have it. This is how this translation has it.
King James? Do you want me to read it off on the King James version?
Okay, King James works.
Okay.
Let me see. Okay.
All right. It says, and God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that yes, every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Should I keep reading?
Yes, please.
Okay. So just tell me to stop whenever you want me to stop. I read pretty slow, so it'll be easy.
Go to the end.
Oh, okay, cool.
Go to the end of right.
Okay, very good. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. These are the generations of Noah.
Right, and then with and then with verse 9, it actually begins the Torah portion of Noach.
Oh, okay,
gotcha. The Torah portion called Noach.
Perfect. Go ahead.
All right. So what is this paragraph? What is this paragraph saying? It's saying, depending, of course, on how you want to translate the word Naham, and the King James, it's translated as it repented God that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. Now, and this actually sets up a very interesting theological question, because God wouldn't know what the future held.
Mm-hmm.
If God didn't know the future, why was he sorry that he made man? Didn't he know how it was going to turn out even before he made man? So I think, and other people will disagree with me, I know that I think this paragraph, even before the entire story of Noah is told, proves to us that we human beings truly have free will.
Right.
Okay. An inventor doesn't necessarily know every single aspect of his invention.
Right.
But over time, he's going to understand its nuances, mm-hmm. and he'll be able to figure out how best to use it and where it's heading. And in the earliest stages of creation, which includes the time of Noah, God seems to be surprised by the evil of man. And that's why he says, it repents of the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart, according to this translation.
Sure.
Some say that the word is nacham, which it means, like to console. So maybe God was consoled by this, but atzab, atzuv, worry, pain, to be sorry for, he made man, is pretty clear in the text.
It's interesting the way
Go ahead.
I was going to say it just to confirm what you're saying, even more so with what I've been thinking over the past years or so. Even now, like for example, if there's something that's people can relate to this, okay? If a person goes to the hospital because they're going for a checkup and they die all of a sudden, it sends their whole family in shock. However, if that same person has had cancer for 10 years and they've known that he was going to die, it's like they have time to prepare for it. And not that anything like that could really prepare you. However, the hit that it takes on you is much less, right? So the same thing goes with natural life as well. If I know them, what is it? April 15th is coming around, and it's tax day, and I know I got to come up with like 10 grand, and I've been preparing for it mentally. When they tell me, I'm not surprised. I'm like, yeah, it bothers me because I'm still just as worried as I was in the beginning, but it's not like a new shock because I was already sort of prepared for it. So the storyline that you're showing here has that same connotation. This is like all of a sudden, bam,
right.
And it's like, so and also Genesis chapter 18 does the same thing.
There's numerous ways to look at this. A person could look at this and say, God was surprised, which means apparently he didn't really know the future, or he didn't exactly know how human beings were going to act. You could actually say that. There's a midrash on this, which says the following. I'm going to try to remember it correctly, but the story is told of a man who needs wood to build his house. And so he explicitly, for the purpose of building this house, he plants a really nice tree, and he, waters it, and he fertilizes it, and he tends to it, and he trims it, and he prunes it, and he takes care of it over the years until it's large enough to cut down. And it hurts him to cut down the tree because he's taken care of it so long, but he always knew that it was going to be used to be, to make his home. So he knew the future, he knew what was going to happen, but he still felt sorry for the fact that it came to this point. And they liken this to God witnessing the evil, where God also knew that the evil was going to be so great they were going to have to be destroyed. Right. And that's why it says it grieved him at his heart.
Interesting.
But you could look at this, it is, it's fascinating, but you could look at this as a way of saying that we really do have free will. We really can choose between good and evil. Therefore choose life means it's still a choice. And so God doesn't necessarily cause us to choose, even if God knows what the future is going to hold. I can know that this conversation will eventually end, but the fact that I know it's going to end doesn't cause it to end.
Right.
So we human beings, even if God does know what we're going to do, knowledge of the future isn't necessarily causative of the future. Mm-hmm. Of course, I may say something stupid and you want to disconnect early. But truthfully, God's knowledge of what the future holds doesn't mean we lose any free will if a person chooses to interpret it in one of the many ways it can be interpreted. Knowledge of God that we're going to do something doesn't mean that God causes us to do it. He merely knows about it in advance. So the paragraph that sets up the story, the portion of Noah that ends the portion of Breshit, okay, in Genesis chapter 6, verse 5, it is a setup for what comes ahead. But in and of itself, it asks very interesting questions. Okay. William, I don't know which Facebook pages you're on, but there was an interesting conversation on one Facebook page that I think we really need to talk about.
Okay.
Because it does come up in conversations. It does come up in conversations whenever we talk about the book of Genesis. And that is that there are stories about the flood that are found in older social groups.
I'm glad you're bringing this up.
Older histories.
This is good.
I'm sorry?
I'm glad you're bringing this up, because that's something I would have liked to have asked you, particularly on this episode, and I completely forgot about it. I'm glad you brought this up. This is great.
Well, no. This came up on a website, and I'm sorry, on a Facebook page, and I got to tell you, and this is why I probably this is one reason why I'm really never going to be that good at certain things, because it really pisses me off. Okay, it makes me angry.
Right.
When people start saying things like, "Oh, well, the Enuma Elish talks about the Gilgamesh epic, where Gilgamesh tells the story of I forgot his name. What's his name? Who basically was like the Noah of Genesis."
Right.
So they'll say things like, "Oh, well, the Jews just stole from the other people's stories, because the Sumerian and the Akkadian and the Babylonian, those stories precede the biblical rendition. So therefore, we took it from them." And they're missing the obvious. They're missing the fact that the Torah is God's revelation.
Right. Now, question. Can I ask you a question, Rabbi? And I'm just curious, was this on a group called Enlightened by chance?
No.
Okay, because that is this exact.
This I think it was on Torah Babies, but I really better not say, because I just don't remember which one it was on.
Okay. The reason why
the old doesn't remember that much too well anymore.
Well, the reason why I'm curious is because in this other group, there's some really, really genuinely just sweet, tenderhearted people that I met in this group. And this is the exact same dialogue that they had with me. And it's at a certain point, it's like they got to the point, at least it appeared to me, and I'm trying to say this humbly as possible, it appeared to me that they got to the point to where every time they would present something to me, when I would come back and present something back, it's like they wouldn't even read it. It's almost like I was dealing back with Christians again when it comes down to teaching Torah. It's like they want you to know what they know, but they don't really care what you have to say. And so I eventually I backed out. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to spend my energy here. It doesn't seem fruitful.
Right.
But I
understand that.
Very, very excited to hear what you have to say about it. So please continue.
Okay, look, we know there was a flood. Okay. Virtually anywhere in the world, if you dig down deep enough, even though you're hundreds of miles from ocean, you will find a layer in the geology, okay, of your, like, if you dig down deep enough, you will find a layer of shells, things that indicate that part of the earth was at one time underwater. Okay, we know there was a flood. What people forget, what they don't understand, or what they don't want to accept, which I think is probably more accurate, is that our Torah is God's revelation to the Jews of the events that occurred. Okay, our Torah is God's telling us about those events. The Akkadians and the Sumerians and the Babylonians, they can have their version, and okay, maybe that came from their mythology, or that came from their stories, their legends, whatever. But ours is God's revelation to us about that same event.
Oh, whoa, hold on.
Okay, that's the first thing that I think.
I haven't heard that. I actually have not heard that viewpoint, nor have I considered that. That's really incredible.
William, it's how we define what the Torah is.
No, what I mean
from
is
the outset that the Torah is God's revelation to the Jewish people. You have to start with that premise, and it renders this whole, who came first, and if they came first and we stole it from them. No, this is God's rendition of that event. This is what God is telling us about what happened.
Excellent. Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Now, there's another point that I think is extremely vital to understanding the book of Noah and the revelation that we're talking about from God. And that is, you cannot understand the stories of Noah and Gilgamesh and what's his name in the Akkadian? I can't think of his name. By looking at the similarities. You have to look at the differences. There was a flood. Okay, they're going to talk about a flood in their story. We talk about a flood in our Noah story. But you have to look not at how they are similar, you have to look at where they are different. And it's in those differences that you find God, that you find the revelation, that you find what makes Judaism Judaism. Okay, let me give you just a couple of quick examples. Okay, take a look at the description, okay, of the Gilgamesh epic. Okay, when it comes to the part where I can't think of his name, their Noah equivalent is told to build the ship, and that's very important to understand. Okay, he is told to build a ship. A ship has a sail. A ship, even if it doesn't have a sail, has a rudder. And in the Gilgamesh epic, okay, I can't think of his name, but the Noah guy in their story, he has someone to run the rudder. He's not the only one on the boat. It's not just his family. It's not just him. He's got someone with him to sail, I'm sorry, to direct, shall we say, the ship.
His name's not Og, is it?
I'm sorry, what?
I said his name's not Og, is it?
No, it's no. No. I'm so bad with names. I can't remember names. But anyway, the point is that if you take a look at the Genesis description of building the boat, it's not a boat.
It's a box.
It's building. It's exactly. It's a shoebox.
Right.
Okay. It's an oblong thing. It doesn't have a sail. It certainly doesn't have a rudder, and it certainly doesn't have a captain to run the rudder.
Right.
Okay. Well, who then is the captain of the ship?
Right.
Who controls where the ark goes? God.
Right.
God is the one who's directing the ship. It's not a ship. I keep saying that.
Right.
Okay. In the Gilgamesh epic, it's his rudder. It's the guy who does the rudder, determines where it goes. In God's revelation to the Jews about what happened, God is saying God is the captain of Noah's ark and directs where it goes. It's not an accident that it's Ararat.
Yeah.
The mountain that it okay. It's God directing it. It's a shoebox, not a ship. It's a ark, not a boat. That's a major distinction theologically between their version and our revelation from God. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let me give you another example. Okay. Why does the flood occur? It's a simple question. Why does the flood occur? In the Akkadian version, the human beings are too loud. They're getting too rambunctious, I guess you would say, and it wakes up the gods who get angry. And in their anger, they cause a flood. Okay? Why does the flood happen in the Torah?
Are you asking me the question? Several things come to mind because of the evil and wickedness, and this is basically a global mikvah, technically.
Exact. By the way, we're going to get into that too. I hope we have time, but because in discussing the story of Noah, we've already been told the story of Adam and Eve, and there's an interesting contrast between the story of Adam and Eve and the story of Noah. Okay, what is God's first thing to do? Well, not the very first thing to do. Let there be light is the first thing. But what's one of the first things that God does at creation? He separates the water from the land.
Okay.
What does God do, okay, to destroy human beings? He puts the water back
on the land, right?
Exactly. So there's a lot of interesting parallels, or not parallels, but contrasts, I guess you would say, between what happened with Adam and Eve and what happened with Noah. But at any rate, the point is that in the other stories of their flood, it's the capriciousness of the gods. It's that two gods were fighting and one accidentally poked a hole in the heavens and caused the flood.
Oh, wow.
But ours is a moral tale, because our God, what is the first thing that God discusses at creation? What is the recurring statement that God makes? He
saw what he had created and it was good.
Exactly. It's an issue of morality and ethics, not just the what's the word? Not just the goodness of creation, but also the moral goodness. The question of is it good or is it evil? Okay. So from the very beginning of God's creating, God is already worried about good and evil. You know, how are human beings going to behave? How do I get them to do what they're supposed to do? Okay, which that's another topic entirely.
You know what?
So, but I'm sorry. Go ahead.
To add to what you just said specifically, it triggered a thought. The reason why, from what I gather, the reason why the flood actually came was because the ark did not work. And the whole purpose of that ark, and I know you're probably going to cover some of this, so I shouldn't get too deep into it, because this is actually your show, not mine, in the sense of your teaching.
Well, no, excuse me, it's our show, please.
Okay. And so the ark, it took literally 120 years, the lifespan of a man, for him to build. And so the purpose of that was to cause the ark's original intent wasn't to save Noah's family. It was actually to cause the people to give them time to repent so that it could actually not happen, right?
By the way, absolutely. And William, that's another interesting parallel or difference or comparison, I should say, between Adam and Eve's story and Noah's story. Okay. How long did it take to create creation? 6 days plus the Sabbath. So 6 days of actual work, right?
Right.
Okay. If you read the text of Noach, it says that basically the ark was done. It was created. But when did it start raining?
Right.
7 days later.
Right.
And that's the time in which, first of all, you got all the time devoted to the construction of the ark. You know, ordinarily I might make a reference to the Bill Cosby routine about, Noah, how long can you tread water? But somehow quoting Bill Cosby anymore is probably not a good thing to be doing.
Right.
But he had a routine that really was funny when it came out, but now we know too much about him. At any rate, so the point though remains is he's building this big structure and people are going to go, what are you doing? And there's a flood coming. The rains are going to come, which he hopes is going to be enough to stimulate them to repent. And there's a week that goes by after he's totally ready to get on the boat. Animals are waiting. Let's go. But there's a full week before it starts raining. It reflects the same thing that happened with Adam and Eve. Okay. At any rate.
No, wait. Explain that. What part of the Adam and Eve specifically?
Adam and Eve had creation 6 days. There was 6 days of creation. Okay. Adam and Eve, let's start all over. Okay. First of all, the story of Adam and Eve begins so incredibly hopeful. Okay, you've got creation. God saw that it was good. You've got, the separation of light and the creation of the sun and moon, stars, You've got it's so filled with hope. Okay, the Noah story, even the paragraph preceding the portion of the Torah of Noach, it's a downer. Okay, the Adam and Eve story begins with such incredible hope, but how does it end?
Mm-hmm.
They get kicked out of the Garden of Eden. Okay, again, the Noah story begins with this just depressive state. Human beings are horrible. They do nothing but think about bad things all day. What was the let's see, every plan devised by his mind was nothing but evil all the time. That's one translation. But how does it end? Okay, he comes out of the ark. There's a rainbow. Okay, may get worse right after that, but that's another issue. We'll get to I'm not sure we'll get to it tonight. But it begins negative and ends at least somewhat happy. Okay, and the Adam and Eve story begins with such hope and ends on a downer.
Okay,
they get kicked out. Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay.
Okay, so there's a lot of point counterpoint comparison, compare and contrast between the Adam and Eve story and the Noah story.
Interesting.
Let's see. Why did Adam and Eve? And I know there's multiple interpretations.
Sure.
Okay, but why did Adam and Eve get kicked out of the Garden of Eden? Because they transgressed. They didn't do what God told them to do. Okay. Ultimately, it was to separate them from the tree of life. But the point is that they didn't follow God's command ultimately, and so they got kicked out of the Garden of Eden. Well, Noah, because he followed the commandment of God, got saved from the flood. You see another juxtaposition between
totally.
Adam and Eve,
right?
Okay, and Noah. They got kicked out of the Garden of Eden because they didn't obey, and Noah got saved because he did obey. Again, I see that as a juxtaposition between the two stories. Let's see. At any rate, the point is that there's differences between the Adam and Eve and the Noah story that I think are set on purpose in contrast with each other. That's
interesting. Okay. I've never actually even compared them together, so that's neat to
okay. But I want to go back to something. I want to finish up, I should say, with something that we were talking about before, and that is having to do with the differences between the Akkadian and the Gilgamesh and all that stuff with our story. Okay, our story is God's revelation that shows the difference between God and what concerns God and everybody else with their concerns. You follow what I'm saying?
Okay.
Okay, and I just wanted to complete that thought that you have to look at the way in which the stories are different, not similar, to understand what it is about our story that makes it Jewish, that makes it from God, and what it is about their story that reflects their idolatry.
Right.
I mean, their stories begin with the idea of multiplicity of gods. Our story begins with God.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So gotcha. I just wanted to finish that.
Okay, and if you're just tuning in, basically to put this as a re-summary and kind of dumb down so that I can wrap my head around it is, there's many claims out there that that the Torah is not necessarily divine because other stories pre-existed the dating system of how they figured out what book came out first, whether it was the Cat in the Hat or Dr. Seuss's another one, but in general, what Rabbi is saying is that they're just different story accounts of the same actual event. See, I never even considered that. I actually
ours is God's revelation to us.
Right. Yes.
Theirs is their mythology, their story, theirs whatever. Ours comes from God. Theirs reflects their paganism. Ours reflects God.
Yeah, that's just fascinating. Rabbi, you have no idea how glad I am you brought this into this Torah portion. This is good.
This came up recently on that Facebook page,
Yeah.
and it just upsets me every time I hear it. And that's why I had to bring it up tonight, because the whole premise of the Torah is that it comes from God. We begin with the idea that this is God's revelation to us, even though, okay, we know what happened. There was a flood. This is God's revelation to us about that event. That's all.
Right.
That's, okay. All right.
Okay, real quick, if all the viewers out there, if you have any questions and you want to call in, feel free. The number is 855-95-BIBLE. That's just for your memory's sake. 855-952-4253. If you have questions specifically regarding this week's Torah portion to some degree, and I'll put that out there.
I will do my best to answer.
Okay, very good. All right, Rabbi.
All right. Okay. I want to do one more thing too, before our night is over. So I want to make sure to get this in.
Okay.
And this also comes from the Midrash. Earlier, we were contrasting, comparing, taking a look at the Adam and Eve story, which is the portion preceding Noah. Now I want to take a look, compare, contrasting with the one that comes after, which is Lech Lecha, which is the story of Abraham. Okay. Basically, the question is asked, Noah talks with God. Noah is commanded by God. Noah responds to the commandment of God. Okay. Ultimately, Noah definitely, obviously has a very intimate relationship with God. Abraham talks with God. Abraham is commanded by God. Abraham responds to the commandment of God. The question is, why does Judaism make the statement that Abraham is the first Jew? Mm-hmm. That Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are our
patriarchs.
What's the word? The fathers of Judaism.
Right.
Okay, the patriarchs.
Right. Yeah.
Couldn't think of the word. I always have trouble thinking of the words. Okay, why are they the patriarchs? Why isn't it begin with Noah?
Personally, I think it has to do with the whole context of with Noah. Hashem told him, build the ark, I'm going to destroy the earth. And he just said, okay, and it's like he gave him literally, I think he caused it to take so long. It caused it to take 100. Can you hear me? Check. Hold on. Let me send you a message here.
Hello.
Okay. Check. Oh, here we go. I'm going to send him a message. Check your headphones. Oh, you know what? There is an internet lag, and it's probably on my end for some weird reason. I've got super high speed internet. If you're still watching this and you can hear me talking, it's an error, I think, on my side. So I'm going to call him back and see if I can get through. We shall see. We'll let it ring for a minute. Nope. Actually, you know what? Maybe it is on his side because it actually won't connect the call. Interesting. Okay. Well, just to complete that thought anyway, Noah was given the task to build the ark, and it literally took him 120 years. Rabbi, I see we're connected. If you want, let me see.
All right, William, I hate to tell you this, but for some reason we got cut off.
Yep. No, I saw that, and actually I addressed it on my end. I was thinking it might have been a problem on my side. However,
doesn't matter. Okay.
Okay.
I'm glad we're back together.
Yes, again. Totally. Can you see if your camera will connect? If it won't, that's quite all right. There we go.
Forgot to hit the button. Sorry.
That is okay. Okay. So basically, I was just going to pick back up where I had left off anyway, and just say, that Hashem gave him this task, and I think he purposefully made it last 120 years because he wanted people to have that time to repent and to stimulate Noach to bring conversation, to which maybe he didn't do. We don't know.
Except why did it reach that point to begin with? what is Abraham's immediate response? Not to the destruction of the entire world.
Yeah, to a city. He pleaded for them.
But just to 2 cities.
Right.
What's his immediate response is to defend and seek justice.
Yes.
Okay. Noah's response is, you want me to build the ark because you're going to kill the whole world?
Okay.
Where do you want me to build it?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Okay.
Right.
He has no response to think about the people who are going to be murdered, who are going to die, who are going to be killed.
Right.
Okay. Abraham's immediate response is to defend and will not the God of justice do justly? Okay. So the reason why Abraham is considered to have earned the right to be the first Jew, the first patriarch of the Jewish people, is because he had in his heart the defense of the righteous.
Right.
Okay. Whereas Noah, nothing. You know, the first. As a matter of fact, we should probably take a look at this.
Okay.
Take a look at now the chapter on Noah, the portion of Noah.
Okay.
Okay.
What verse does that start in? 9?
9.
Oh yeah, there we go. All right, let me pull that up on screen. And there, got it. Okay, 6:9. These are the generations of Noach. Noach was just a man, and was a just man. He was just a man. He wasn't a. Never mind. I'm not going to actually go there.
Right.
He wasn't just a man on a stick. I'm just kidding. Wasn't a man perfect in his generation. And that's what I see draws a lot of attention. Perfect in his generation. Right.
Exactly. There's the commentary talks about the 2 interpretations of what that might mean. In other words, if he was perfect in his generations, that could mean that compared to everybody else in his generation, he was a great guy, you know. But if he was living in a different generation where there were a lot of people who were great, he may not have been seen, you know, to be such so perfect at all. Or, okay, another way to interpret it is if Noah was a just man and perfect in his generation, and his generation was so bad, okay, if he was in a different generation, he'd have been phenomenal.
Right. That's kind of where my thought pattern lies, actually.
Right. Right. So we're dealing with a man who was good in his generation, and however you want to understand that, his response to the impending doom of the entire world was to say, okay, where do you want me to build? You know, but Abraham says, no, wait a minute. You're the God of justice. Shall not the God of justice do justly? You know, act justly.
Now I have a question for you.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have a question, and I never even thought about it until just now. It's the first time the thought ever crossed my mind. With the story of Jonah and Nineveh, I wonder if maybe Noah had a little bit of Jonah going on in his mind. Like, you know what, the heck with these people. They're wicked. Kill them. Yes, kill them all. You know, I mean, granted, I'm not saying that was literally what was going on, but is that a possibility? Maybe he saw the wickedness and said, you know what, I get it. I totally understand why you want to destroy them. And show me my hammer. Right?
There is, yes, I think there's actually a commentary that kind of hints at that.
Okay.
But you know, one of my professors in undergrad used to make the statement that if you cannot show it, you do not know it. And there is explicit evidence with Jonah that he really didn't like the people of Nineveh. He gets angry at God. I told you were going to forgive them, and he didn't want them to be forgiven. Right. You don't find that evidence with Noah. Okay. It is quite possible that there might have been a they're not worthy. You know, I don't. You know, look. Who in this world gets teased, gets persecuted? Okay, it's the group that's most responsible for trying to make the world a moral, ethical place, which, by the way, is our raison d'etre of the Jewish people. Okay, l'taken olam b'malchut Shaddai, to repair the world through the rule of God. Okay, but what does it get us? It gets us persecution, because nobody likes to be told, you know, you're wrong, you're immoral, you're unethical, you're doing things that are idolatrous. Nobody likes to hear that. So if Noah was doing the sacrifices for his children, he was a pious man, he's probably going to get dumped on by the society in which he lives, and it could make him think, I hope you get yours, I'm not going to even try to save you. And so there could be an element to that.
Okay.
Right. So
awesome.
But it is always, people will say that Abraham was the first Jew, but if you stop and think about it, we could have said that about Noah, but it's their personalities that were so radically different. Noah's very self-oriented, and Abraham was other-oriented, and that's the reason.
Awesome. Now, question for you: do you mind if we kind of take a little bit of a left turn here?
Okay. Whatever you want to do is fine.
Yeah, because this is that's one thing that I really enjoy about the open dialogue, because there's a lot of questions I've had over the past 3 years that I never get to ask, and finally, I've got a rabbi in my shirt pocket right now. I can ask him a question.
Yeah. Well, let me say this, William. I would be very happy to confuse you even more so.
Okay, great. The next verse, 6:10, it says, "And Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth." Okay, now the Midrash says that he had, each one of them had either twin sisters or even triplet sisters. And so if that's true, if there's any possibility to that, or even just a single sister, and it doesn't actually state it in the Torah itself, it would help us to understand maybe other scenarios and how repopulation began. Because I know certain laws changed once they got maybe not changed, maybe refined.
Well, wait a minute. There's a basic idea of ein mukdam ve'ein me'uchar, that there's no early or late within the Torah.
Okay.
The rabbis wanted to see Abraham as just as likely to keep kosher as Moses.
Okay.
So, you have to remember something about Midrash. Okay. Why was Midrash written? Okay. Why did the rabbis come up with a Midrash on something? Okay. Nothing could. William, you said this when I first started tonight. I said, I have a story to tell you. And you said, oh, I love stories. And people will remember a story longer than they will remember simple statements.
Right.
Okay. Stories have a way to stick to the soul.
Okay.
And especially if the story is a lesson in morality or ethics or behavior, or shows us an insight into something that interests us. The rabbis wrote the Midrash because they were trying to make a point to their congregation. They were using a story, usually about, not always, but usually about a biblical character, because they were trying to get a point across to their congregants, okay, to whoever they were preaching to, okay. And so you have to ask the question whenever you read a Midrash is, why was this story told? Mm-hmm. What's the point of this? Now, I must tell you that offhand, I mean, you've already had evidence of my wonderful memory tonight, but I don't remember what you're referring to about 3, each one of them had sisters.
Well, I never actually finished the question out per se. One of the questions that's come up many times was not only from the story of creation with Adam and Chava, but also in the Noach story. How did repopulation begin whenever you only were limited to one single family? That's where this is all looping back together again.
Okay. I must tell you that I've been this is my excuse, I've been very busy, but there's a very interesting verse in the Torah portion for Noach. And the first thing you're going to say is, what's the chapter and verse? And
that's okay.
Okay.
That's okay.
But when they come out of the ark, there's a statement that is made that one could interpret to mean that the entire earth was not completely covered with rain, because it says that when it talks about the animals exiting the ark, there's an implication that they were going somewhere to join other animals. And I know the first thing you're going to say is, what? Where's that? And offhand, I can't remember. So maybe this whole conversation is moot.
Okay.
But the point is that it could maybe give evidence that there were parts of the earth that were not touched by the flood, and therefore there might have been other families. But you got to remember also that the end of the story of Noah, even though it begins horrible, and the immediate end of the story is they come out of the ark and it's very hopeful. You've got the rainbow, which is another fascinating topic, by the way. But at any rate, right after that, what happens? They engage in incest.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's
speculation too, of course, but
not the best. No, that's not.
You're talking about with Ham?
No.
Oh, with Lot. No, you're talking about with Lot, right?
Wait, I'm confusing it with Lot. But with Noah,
yeah,
you had the implication,
right,
where they see us naked. Let me find it.
Right.
You have it's a sexual illusion.
Right. Some sort of perversion. With Ham seeing his father naked and his brothers carried in a blanket backwards to
right, and they went backwards,
right,
okay,
to shield his nakedness. Right.
Some interpretations that it was not so.
I've heard that too, and you know what? I don't really.
Right, but you're right. No, you're right. For me, it's very late at night already, and I got confused with Lot.
Hey, by the way, I'm sorry about that. I know it would have been better for you to be earlier, but my schedule just doesn't really permit.
No.
Okay.
It's fine. I'm very happy to be on.
Okay.
It's not a problem.
Okay, got it.
Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father's nakedness and told his two brothers outside. But Shem and by the way, it's Japhet.
Right.
Okay. Or Japheth. I love that. Took a cloth, placed it in both their hands' backs, and walked backwards and covered their father. Right. So there is that.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Now humor me on this point real fast.
By the way, remember
yes.
also, this is a very interesting characteristic, by the way, with B'nai Noach.
Okay.
Okay. You know, of course, that it requires to make 10 for certain prayers to be prayed in Judaism. Judaism is a religion of community.
Right,
and
for a minion, kind of like with Abraham when he pleaded.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay. So you need 10.
Right.
How many do you need in B'nai Noach, and why?
How many people, or how many what?
Yes, for a prayer service.
Actually, I have no idea. I've never even heard that topic mentioned. 8? Really?
How many people were in the ark?
Okay. Interesting. I can see why they would come to that conclusion. I totally get that. Yeah.
Noah and his wife, his 3 sons and their wives.
Right.
8.
Got it.
All right. This is what I was told in the earliest days. Let's see, I'm in Houston 26 years. So 26 years ago, I actually would attend the classes for the B'nai Noach community at the Orthodox congregation here. And this is one thing that I remember from that discussion.
Interesting.
Okay, but remember the Shem, Ham, and Japhet had wives. They had children. They populated the earth. So the question of
which goes back to my question originally.
Exactly. But the idea of incest, one could say, was part of the revelation that came later.
Well, regarding
also,
the idea of incest, though, I mean, realistically, it's really only incest once a law is given.
No, they're only held culpable for incest because they're breaking the law, but it's still incest.
Okay, what about Adam and Eve, if that's the case?
No, wait a minute. But that's a totally different answer.
Okay.
The story of Adam and Eve, they have Cain and Abel. Cain murders Abel. Cain goes off and marries his wife. Where did she come from?
Good point.
Okay. The text doesn't say anything about Adam and Eve having other children who had other children who had other children who had other children. Okay, and it may go back. Okay, William, I know what you're going to say, but Rabbi, earlier you used the saying, "If you cannot show it, you do not know it."
Right.
And you're right. You're right. Okay, and I understand that. But the point is that Adam and Eve probably had other children not named in the Torah.
Agreed. Yes.
But the Torah story isn't about them. It's about Cain.
It's key characters is what Torah points out.
Exactly.
Right.
And so therefore, when Cain takes a wife, it is from one of the descendants of his parents.
Right.
Okay. It could have been a great granddaughter. Remember, people live to be a very old age.
Bingo. And I think that's going to be a major key feature in understanding. But it still goes back to my point, though. If they were sons of his parents, that would make them biological brother and sister, which technically is incest.
Wait
right?
a minute. If Adam
wait a minute. I see what you're saying. Because they lived so long and they had many sons and daughters, and they had sons and daughters, and then they would marry, and then that's whenever. Okay, right. Beautiful. Okay,
that's
love it. Love it.
But they're not mentioned because the story wasn't about them.
Nice.
Okay, that's a different response to the problem of Noah, because Noah's children didn't have unnamed people, unless you go back to that verse that said the flood did not cover the entire earth, just their part of the earth. Look, I can say to you, how's your world? Okay.
Right.
When I say, William, how's your world doing? I'm not talking about China, because China's not in your world. Okay. So one could possibly understand that when it says the whole world was flooded, it doesn't literally mean every single cubic inch of the entire globe, but it meant only the world of the biblical characters. I mean, interpretations can go any different direction. Okay, it's never, this is the stuff that rabbinic commentary is made of. Okay, the ability of the human mind to interpret and see connections and have this ongoing, never-ending dialogue between generations. So, anyway.
Okay.
All right.
I bet I completely mishmashed your agenda tonight, didn't I?
No. That's perfectly all right. I had no agenda except to discuss what we've already discussed.
That's cool. That's cool.
Right. And I'm sorry.
No apologies. I'm actually enjoying this quite thoroughly. I really am.
Well, yeah. I hope everybody else is too, if there's anybody else listening.
Okay, so, I'm going to kind of zip it for a little bit because right now it's just as a cue, it is 10:26. We just ran over an hour a little bit. I've got a little bit more time. So I'm going to kind of remain silent, let you cover the key points that you wanted to cover. And then we'll kind of see where it goes. Because honestly, this particular Torah portion is so thick and juicy. Literally, I guarantee you, Rabbi, you and I could sit here and talk about it for 4 or 5 hours nonstop.
I know that this is probably a horrible thing for a rabbi to say, but there are some Torah portions where every verse is a 20-minute sermon.
Right.
Well, I shouldn't say this, but there's some Torah portions. It's not so easy to come up with a sermon. not so easy to But anyway.
Gotcha.
Our Chazal, the sages from before us, they could do better than me.
I think you're doing great.
Well, I try my best. At any rate, let's see. What else to discuss? Okay. By the way, I have my religious school, my Sunday school, and I have the little kiddies. Okay, and when you tell the story with all the little kiddies sitting around you, okay, you're going to talk about Noah getting the animals, okay? And William, when you say that when you say that Noah went out to get the animals, you're going to say he brought them back.
Yeah, you're going to want to say 2 by 2.
Right, okay. But people hear that and they don't read the text.
I can't tell you how many people who were actually teachers in Christianity, whenever I came across this and I'd ask them, let me just ask you a simple question. I would ask them and they would say the same thing. I've said, are you sure about that? And they would say, yes. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm totally shocked that they did not read it. They hear the stories and it sticks with them from when they were 6 years old. And now they're telling that story that they've never researched. It's absolutely amazing.
By the way, that is something that actually that I would like to talk about. Okay. Let's go to the translation. It's chapter 7. And you're using
I've got KJV here.
Of course. Mainly because that's the one that comes free with every single Bible program.
Yeah.
No, seriously, that's the reason.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Right.
I've got, hold on, I may have New King James.
I knew it was Torah. Okay. All right. Let me, you're going to love this.
Okay.
I'm sure.
Tell me where to follow. Chapter 8.
Okay. No. It's chapter 7.
Oh.
Okay. At the very beginning.
And the Lord said to Noah,
come thou and come with all your house into the ark, for you have I seen righteous before me in this generation. And then it says, of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by sevens, the male and the female. Okay, this goes back to what we were just saying about most people say 2 by 2.
Right.
Okay, as a matter of fact, there was a Broadway musical about Noah called 2 by 2, I think.
Interesting.
But at any rate, the text is clear. It says sevens, the male and female.
So 14 of the clean and 2 of the unclean. Right.
Okay. William, tell me exactly what it means by clean.
What you want my immediate response? I would say fit.
Mine after you tell me yours, I'll tell you mine.
Okay, my understanding of the clean animals are those animals that are technically that are fit for sacrifices, which would mean that they are kosher, but they're also set up that they would be acceptable for a sacrifice as well.
Right. So what you're saying is that it's the animals that are washed off. Clean means washed off. So they use soap and water to wash them off with?
I wouldn't have gone there, but go ahead.
Right. Okay. Here is my take on this.
Okay.
And I think it's because there's a mistranslation of the words that we use. We talk about the clean and the unclean. Okay. Or we talk, what's the other word that we
tahor? No.
Yes, tahor is clean.
Okay.
But there's another English pure.
Oh, I don't know. If you say it, I'll be like, oh, that word.
Yeah, that's how I'm thinking right now.
Okay.
My point is this: I don't think in the modern use of the term clean we mean clean.
Right, like washed with soap and water. I mean, exactly. It's kosher.
Okay, and I don't think that we have issues of purity, okay, when we're dealing with animals.
Okay.
Okay. And I know you're going to think I'm crazy about this. My synagogue does too, because this comes up not only here, but Leviticus when we're talking about kosher. Okay. Do you know how I would translate that word? Yucky.
The clean, you would translate yucky.
Yucky. Gross. Disgusting.
The clean ones.
No, the unclean ones.
Oh, the unclean ones. Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Like cockroaches and yeah.
Yeah, but think about it, okay? Every time it uses the word clean or unclean, pure or impure, what's the other? There's another word that is commonly used for that translation, and I can't think of what it is. But they're not talking purity. Pure, what does pure mean? It means 100% of one chemical. Okay, what does that mean in context? Okay, or clean. Okay, is this, so the only thing that this is the issue of is hygiene? Okay.
Well, see, I would have never thought that to begin with. Not a hygiene factor, not a tangibly clean, but actual what is considered kosher and non-kosher.
Right, but if you think about what is kosher, okay, kosher doesn't mean clean. It's not issues of health. It's not the Food and Drug Administration of the ancient world. Okay.
It's a design.
I'm sorry, what?
It's by design. It's a design feature.
It's a design feature, that's true, but look at what's not kosher. Okay. Look at what is not considered, depends on what word you want to use, pure or clean. Okay. When I say the word to you, Fish. Do you think of an octopus?
No, not at all.
Do you think of a crab?
No, definitely not.
Okay, to me, crab, and look, okay, what do you expect from me? But to me, okay, what's it called? Crawfish.
Shrimp, yeah.
Shrimp, lobster, they look like bugs. When I think of the word fish, when I think of what's in an ocean, I don't think of something that looks like a bug.
Right.
Okay. The idea, to me at least, okay, you know, maybe other people in other cultures think of it differently, okay, but it would be gross and disgusting to eat a bug, even if it was what the kosher locust, okay, that the Bible does say is in fact kosher, okay. Uh-oh. Still there?
I'm still here. You good?
I just had a weird, okay, sorry. Okay, I think the word there is better translated as yucky or gross when it talks about the impure or the unclean.
Okay.
Okay. Look, William, we are adults here. I don't know who's watching the show, but you know, we're adults here. You could also use the same concept for the menstrual cycle.
Okay.
Okay, it's gross. It's not clean or unclean. It is yucky.
Okay.
Okay. You take a look at an eel. If I say the word to you fish, you don't think of an eel.
Right.
Okay. The slithery, slimy thing that's moving by you in the water is gross. It's disgusting. You're not going to think, gee, I wonder how that tastes.
Right.
Okay. You know, you pick up a spider, you know, you're not going to think to yourself, you know, oh, this would be good with mustard. Okay. It's gross. It's disgusting. And when the biblical text uses the term clean or unclean, okay, I don't really think it's clean soap and water. Okay. I don't think it's pure, impure in terms of 100% of one chemical. Okay. Which is what pure means. I think it really talks about what is gross and disgusting to us. Okay. What is, okay, the word, the anglicized, Yiddishized word, okay, treif, is the word that we use for
something torn.
Something torn, okay, something that is not kosher. If it's not kosher, it's treif. But the word, as you just said, comes for something ripped or torn.
Right, or something hit by a car or something that was inappropriately slaughtered.
And we have a name for that. It's called roadkill. No, seriously, right. We are above that. We don't eat roadkill. Right. We only eat that which is killed from our own hand, okay, or from the hand of the shochet. Yep. Okay. To me, these issues are not issues of purity. They're certainly not issues of health. They're issues of holiness. And when you think of something that is holy, you don't think of something that is yucky. Right. Okay. And so what God is saying here is, of the not yucky stuff, I want seven doubles. Okay. Mm-hmm. Male and female times 7. But of the ones that are yucky, okay, we got to save them. But I'd rather, when all things are said and done, there's more in the world that's nice, okay, that's not yucky, than there is of yucky. Right. I think that's what's going on here.
And I do too, because I mean, the thing is that the unclean or the yucky animals were obviously, and see, that's another thing I have in my mind I struggle with sometimes when it comes to the Noahide laws and what's called Noahide laws or laws of the Ger, is that even with Noah, I mean, if there was only one male and one female, and if another speculation of mine is, it just so happens to be true. I mean, you've got all these different species on an ark. How do you fit them on there with the least amount of, of fecal debris, with the least amount of food, as you put babies on? Okay. The babies, they won't have other babies because they're too young. Right. And likewise, if you eat one of the two unclean animals, that will end that species, unless they were old enough by that time to where they were able to, to actually impregnate one or the other. But then you don't know, you're playing Russian roulette. So for the whole idea of eat anything you want, all animals I've given to you for food, I still struggle with that a little bit, because there's a catchphrase next to that says, just as I gave you the green herb. And with green herbs, there were rules. You couldn't eat every green herb. Some of them would actually make you sick. Some of them would, be poisonous.
Okay.
Okay. So,
right. That's yes, that's true. Let me see if I can find it here.
Okay.
Real quick.
And so to further that thought, while you're looking that up, to further that whole thought is, the 7 pair of unclean. I know the Midrash says that they had all those extra clean, the 14 of each species to be clean for sacrifices and such. In my mind, I'm thinking it was for food, not to eat the unclean ones, because they would have a male and a female to procreate, so that they could still keep that going. And if you were going to eat of this food,
there are midrash, by the way,
right,
that talks about the holy state of those on the ark, and that their appetites
were suppressed, right?
Yeah. But that, be that as it may.
I heard another really interesting thing today. Again, while you're looking that up, was that Noach had experienced somewhat a little season of the Messianic era in this journey he had on the ark, in that with the peace amongst the animals, the lion laying with the lamb, sort of a thing, where there was no strife between animals, that Hashem just put a steady peace.
Remember something. That's what I'm trying to look for.
Okay.
God tells Noah, okay, before they go out of the ark, that, up until now, the beasts have not been afraid of you. But now, this goes back to why God gives in to the bloodlust of human beings, and it's only after the Noah that that they can eat meat.
Okay.
Up until then, they were supposed to be vegetarians. Okay. Here we go.
One thing I was going to say earlier, you mentioned in verse 4 of chapter 8, when you said that when the animals were released out of the ark, there was a period of time after the ark rested before they opened up the doors to give the water more time to recede. And so that was my understanding, was the reason why the animals were able to leave and just go off and do their because the water had time to recede more before they opened the doors.
And I think I understand that, but and I'm still sleeping, I guess, but there's a place in the text where God says, okay, where it says that the animals are now going to be afraid of you.
Oh, right. Gotcha. Okay.
They didn't have to be afraid, because up until that point, they were not eating meat. Okay. Right. And God had to, one of the reasons why it's said that that the people had become so evil is because their bloodlust, their thirst for, their hunger for meat was not being met. And so they turned on each other. And so as a concession, as an acquiescing to the bloodthirst of human beings, after they came out of the ark, God said, okay, now you can eat meat, because I'd rather you ate meat than ate each other, so to speak, and went to violence. But by the way, we didn't talk about that.
Right.
It's all, the Hebrew, that the word that uses for violence?
Yeah, it's Hamas.
Hamas, just like
Hamas,
the Arab organization.
Right.
Okay. Anyway, so the point is that God gives in to the bloodthirst of man after Noah, but until then, all human beings were vegetarian. Right. And he says to him, remember, from now on, the animals are going to be afraid of you.
9:2.
Thank you. I would have found it eventually. See, I have my notes in my Bible, and I kind of left it in the car. So
that's quite all right. It's the price I pay for catching you there's a day and a half before the broadcast, not giving you time to prepare.
Well, yeah, it's also being the absent-minded professor type, let me tell you, okay? God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fertile and increase, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth. The fear and the dread of you shall be upon all the beasts of the earth, and upon all the birds of the sky, everything with which the earth is astir, and upon all the fish of the sea are given unto your hand. So it's at this point that animals start eating each other, humans start eating animals, okay, and
so he did experience this messianic moment.
Yes,
wow.
Which I think that's what you're referring to, is this one midrash
Right.
about one interpretation of midrash about that. But according to the biblical story, see, I tend to be more of a kind of purist, real purist, a literalist,
right.
And looking more to the pashat of the text, because it says now they're going to be afraid of you. Well, why weren't they afraid before? Because everything was a vegetarian. And God had to give in to the bloodthirst of man in order that they wouldn't be so, full of Hamas anymore, of destruction. Right. So very, like you said, there's just so much in this text. Okay, and it's also late.
Yeah, sure.
We didn't talk about we didn't talk about the rainbow.
Oh, right.
It's a very interesting symbol of the rainbow. Have you ever seen a double rainbow?
Yes.
It's incredibly beautiful. Have you ever seen a rainbow where you really can see violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red,
very clearly,
where it's really clear?
Right.
Okay. It really is a moving sight. Okay. And isn't it interesting that God rained down onto the earth the rains that flooded, okay, that caused the flood, right?
Right.
But what shape is the rainbow? And it's called a bow, a rainbow.
Right.
Okay. Well, when we think of bow, we think of bow and arrow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which is going up.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an interesting contrast, I think. And I think there's plenty of midrash about that too, as far as that goes. Okay. All right. Well, I forgot what I was going to say. All right. Anyway.
About the rainbow and the bow.
About the rainbow, the bow.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Is it possible before the flood that you would have the sun out at the same time in the distance away from you, it was raining?
I got the impression myself, and I never really thought much about it, but the impression that I've always had was that up until this point, there really wasn't a heavyish type of rain. And here's another thing too, is this in Judaism, I noticed there is a concept of the good rains that come when rains come in their due season. The teachings on that I've heard is that they never really so much come in the daytime. They usually come at night. So it doesn't interfere with your work, and it doesn't come in high hordes of rain. Like here in Texas, for example, we had a drought, for so long. And then all of a sudden we had all these floodwaters come in and everybody's like, thank you, Jesus. And I'm thinking, I'm like, that's not a blessing. If your land is sliding away with the water, that wasn't a blessing from Hashem. So with that idea is if that really is an element of truth to that, and the rains did come in the perfect timing, which was usually at nighttime, then they wouldn't have had a rainbow anyway, or they wouldn't have witnessed one.
Right.
If that's true.
All right. And I think that is equally a good interpretation of the biblical text. Okay. But there are multiple interpretations of the biblical text. And I happen to think that I think it was very probable that there were rainbows even before the rainbow.
Okay.
And what happened is that the Bible takes this symbol that is generic and out there and turns it into a statement of how would you word that? It's a statement of how God, is never going to do it again.
Right.
Okay. But remember I was talking about how it's a bow, like a bow and arrow, and it points up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to get this mixed up. I always do. You've already seen me in names. William.
That's okay.
But what was the tool of the trade, shall we say, of Diana, Queen of the Hunt? Goddess of the Hunt. Was it a knife?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say it was a bow and arrow.
Bingo. Okay.
I have no idea who this lady is, by the way.
Diana was the goddess of the hunt.
Yeah.
And what's the equivalent in either that's Greek and this is Roman, or this is Roman, that's Greek. I always got that stuff mixed up. But bows and arrows were always the tools of many of the gods.
Okay.
So here, once again, okay, the commentary says, I can't remember if this is Nachmanides or Rambam, but anyway, the point is that, okay, this is taking, again, a pagan symbol and turning it into something of what would be the word?
A contract. I mean, in a way.
It's a contract, but it's also getting God and humans back together again, because there was the split with the flood, okay? And now that, this generation is wiped out, okay, God is saying, I'll never do this again to the human being, to the human race. Okay. It's a getting them back together again. Whatever the word is. Okay.
Gotcha.
And
reuniting.
And, say it again.
Reuniting.
Thank you. It's reuniting God with humanity.
Okay.
Which is contrasting it with the gods. Okay. The pagan gods who, okay, how did Cupid make a human being fall in love with another human being?
Right.
Okay, it was with his arrow. Okay, so the attack, so to speak, of the gods on humans was symbolized by the bow. And, God takes that as a symbol and turns around to show the reunification between God and humanity.
Okay.
It's a different use of the same concept.
Got it.
Right. Okay. Anyway.
Wow.
I wanted to make sure to talk about that too.
I appreciate that. And
I think that's fascinating.
There's a lot of things that we actually weren't able to cover. And I know that, that, but like I said, we would need a half a day time slot just to fit all the juicy stuff in. Rabbi, yes.
William, have you ever, we're talking about, sometimes the conversations, shall we say, that we get into with the non-Jewish community. Have you ever heard that the condemnation of one of the children of Noah is a legitimization of slavery?
No, I've never heard that before.
I should have asked you before we got on the air, but there's something I've heard actually rather often, that the story of Noah, okay, and what happened with his sons is a justification for the enslavement of the black community, because they were descendants supposedly of one of the sons, the son of Noah, who was condemned to serve the older brothers.
But see, even with that said, go ahead. I apologize.
No, go ahead. I think you were going to say the same thing I was going to say.
Maybe not. The whole idea that used to baffle me was the idea of slavery before, you kind of study it out and find out what Jewish history teaches and such, is that my natural instinct as a child and growing up, listening to the stories is that, oh my gosh, the black slavery in America and all this other stuff, that's what they did in the Bible, but it's not. It wasn't that at all. It was completely, it's totally different. But it wouldn't apply anyway, in other words.
But this is used sometimes. I've heard it used to rationalize it, to justify it.
Interesting.
The problem with that, of course, is that if you take a look at least Jewish interpretation, where the three sons of Noah went, wouldn't allow that to happen, because the son who went to Africa wasn't the son who was condemned.
Interesting.
And it's just something to look at, if you ever get curious about it.
I don't
remember well enough. I thought maybe it had come up.
Yeah, I sure hadn't. That was a first. I've been hearing a lot of firsts lately, though. So I'll have to start writing them down. Rabbi, real quickly before we get off here, do me a favor. Take your book again, Judaism and Christianity: A Contrast. Hold it up close to the screen, and let me see the cover. Push. Yeah, actually, that's pretty good, because I actually have it full screen. Go ahead and scoot it in closer to the screen.
How's that?
That's perfectly fine right there. Okay. So this book, Amazon, I'm telling you, we have this book. My wife has already read. She beats me to reading everything, of course. And, but she reads it to me. So I get the easy road. And so this book seriously is absolutely loaded with some, I mean, it's a thin book, but it's designed that way for a reason. It's absolutely jam-packed full of everything that you need if you have encounters with people who are walking in disagreement with Hashem in this regard. So definitely go to Amazon, check that out because it's fascinating. And so, and again, your website, whatjewsbelieve.org. And don't forget that app. I just downloaded it on my phone earlier at the beginning of the show, and I'm already in love with it. It's fascinating.
Well, thank you. The app is Jewish Mission Control. And for the for Android, it's Jewish Mission Control V2, version 2.
Got it.
But for the iPhone, iPad, iOS, it's Jewish Mission Control. So
awesome.
It's 2 apps, iPhone and Android. The website in English, whatjewsbelieve.org. Spanish is creenciajudia.org. And my book. Thank you for letting me bring that up.
That is awesome. Rabbi, love you. Thank you so much for taking the time out. Enjoyed this episode. Can't wait till the next time. And so for you folks, our next broadcast is tomorrow night with Rabbi Michael Skovak. So don't miss it. 9 p.m. Same time, same place. Rabbi, love you. Folks, we love you out there.
Thank you.
You betcha. Shalom, shalom, everyone.
תמיד תמיד כולם ביחד, חשוב מכל חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד. איפוק זו העוצמה, ויתור זו הגדולה, השאיפה והכמיהה.